All right, we are live. Welcome everyone to Spill the Tea in 10 with La Libre. If you are a proficiency-oriented world language teacher and you are looking for today's topic is all about assessment, then you're in the right place for some quick tips to make your journey to proficiency-oriented instruction a lot more practical. So what we do in this session, in these sessions that happen live every Wednesday at 4 p.m. in this group, or if you're watching the replay later on YouTube, is we take questions from the audience. Y'all submit the questions and we chat about them. So this is a real question coming from a teacher. I believe it was Maureen. Maureen asked about, I'm struggling with assessment because my department prefers to use more traditional practices. So if you're in this boat, then this question's for you. But also, if you are in a more proficiency-oriented department, or if you're a department of one, yeah, been there, and you have a little bit more freedom with what you are able to do, then this is going to benefit you too, because today we're going to be talking about ways that you can solucionarla, ways that we can fix this for you. And even if you are using more proficiency-oriented assessments, a suggestion for you to start using to make them a bit more streamlined and all work together to tie up your curriculum in a nice, beautiful little bow. Because one of the things with ACTFL is that ACTFL, or if you're using CEFR, if you're an international watcher as well, is one of the goals is to have curriculums as students move through your program that align and don't repeat content. So a good way to do that, really the easiest way, the most practical way, is to make sure that you start with your assessments, that your assessments are guiding really the content that you are delivering. So let's get into it. Okay, so if you're in this boat, first of all, it's a really, really difficult place to be in when you want to move into more proficiency-oriented techniques and you want to use a lot more things that are rich in CI, but your department might be for, one reason or another. And we ain't here to like place the blame on anybody because everybody has different reasons for starting on their journey, right? Everybody's different seasons of teaching, but for whatever that reason might be, they're just not on the same page as you. So first and foremost, don't press the issue. Everybody needs to come to this on their own terms. And all of us are on the same side. We're all teachers at the end of the day. So don't force the issue. But when it comes to assessment, this is a place where you can make a good deal of ground to make instruction much more beneficial for your students. And here's how you can do this while not making waves with your colleagues that you trust and want to work well with, and can also satisfy some of their desires and requirements as well. I suggest that for you, if you are in this position, or maybe even if you're not, that if you're not in this realm, that maybe even go in this direction as well, check out IPAs if you're not already using them. IPAs stand for Integrated Performance Assessments, and they are what is currently recommended by ACTFL as a very efficient as well as proficiency-oriented way to determine your students' progress in all of the things that are recommended by standards aligned language teachers. So you don't even have to go into the realm of, well, comprehensible input this and comprehensible input that. Like, they don't care about that stuff, right? You can just say that, well, this is actually what's recommended for all teachers right now. This is the most highly recommended method of assessing our students. So why not go with that, right? That just having that authority backing alleviates a lot of that back and forth and discussion. Now, if you've never heard of it before, what is an IPA, Integrated Performance Assessment? It's easier with an example. An integrated performance assessment is when you assess students in 3 parts. So it works really well as a big assessment rather than a small one. This is one of your summatives. The assessment works like this in 3 parts. You might do, first you start with something interpretive. For example, maybe you give students a magazine from the target culture or an article from it, really. You give an article to the students and say you're doing a unit on clothes, quote unquote, or they know a lot of clothing vocabulary already. And you pull out this clothing advertisement and you ask them a couple questions in the target language about what's in the clothing advertisement. Things like, how much does the clothing cost? Do you like this item? What color is this shirt? What color are those earrings and how much do the earrings cost? That kind of thing. Then using that same authentic article from that target language magazine advertisement, you would say, okay, now students, we're going to use this same article. And then this is the second part of the assessment. You are now going to use this article to have a discussion with a partner. And this is the interpretive part of the assessment, part number 2. This might occur on the second day. The interpretive part of the assessment is where you are going to ask 2 students, or honestly, I think it works better if you do it with the student rather than putting 2 students together. That's a whole nother discussion for another day though. But if you've never done it before, I recommend doing it with your student. You and your student would look at that same article and advertisement, and you would ask them questions about it, prompting them things, maybe even some of the similar things that you ask them to read through. You might point to a jacket and say, "Ooh, do you like that jacket?" in the target language. And they would have, and you would grade them on how well they're able to respond to you, but it would be a much more natural, fluid conversation. Things like, if they're not able to understand the word jacket, you might point to something else and say, well, do you like that vest? Or do you like that shirt without sleeves? And then once they give you an answer, then you start to prompt them more and more and more. Okay, cool. Why do you like it? What color is it? How much does it cost? Is that in your budget? How much money do you have on you? Do you want to go to this store? Why or why not? Cuéntame más. Tell me everything. And while they're doing that whole like lécher les vitrines while they're window shopping with this, and you guys are having a conversation about it, then you give them a grade, proficiency based and standards based if you can pull it off. But if you're working in a completely traditional setting, the way that I used to get around this is we would use a lot of the can-do statements from ACTFL. Again, you can find them on their website that are appropriate for your students' levels. And you just assign a numerical value to it. It's the best of both worlds, because then everybody's happy with having a grade system that everybody is used to. You still get a numerical value, but you're also still dabbling into the world of standards-based grading, which is the ideal. It's great. So that's another way that you can maybe work towards some of those things, is start assigning numerical values like the whole ABCD grading system to maybe some proficiency-based things. And what that really means in simple terms is you might take like a can-do statement and slap it on your rubric and say that this is the standard that we're going for. But, instead of just grading for the standard and giving you feedback on that, I'm also just going to give you, an A-, A+, that kind of thing. Now, the third and final part of the assessment, this is what makes it the integrated performance assessment, is that you have all 3 of these. Is the last part is usually some sort of writing task. Or sometimes people even do it with like students give a little speechy speech. You can do that too, but it's most commonly written. And this is the part where students are going to take that same article. So they use the same authentic text for each of these 3 pieces of the assessment, right? That's what makes it integrated. And they are now going to do a written task. You might ask them a question like, you're going to go to this store in order to prep for maybe a vacation. So what can you buy there? What from the advertisement would work well for the vacation you're going on? What doesn't work well for the vacation you're going on? What works for your budget? What doesn't work for your budget? What clothing do you like? What clothing do you not like? That kind of thing. And then you just ask them for a written prompt. And then you give them a grade for how well they're able to perform the task of writing. So that's where you get the 3 pieces of this integrated performance assessment, and why it's called integrated. And the main distinctive feature of it is that you usually start with one authentic document, whether it be a video. In our example that we just discussed, we used an article from a catalog or a magazine, and that same authentic document is used in every single task that you give them. And the task slowly gets more demanding, but you're still using the same document. Also, you're working in all three modes: interpretive, interpersonal, and then presentational will be the last one with the writing. And that's that. This works really well because it hits on all of the things that traditional teachers love. You're getting in that writing, you're getting in that speaking component. And if you need to satisfy some requirements that traditional teachers really do love, you can adjust the rubric to account for the functional chunks, the vocabulary, and the specific grammar structures that you're teaching for and looking for. It makes everybody happy. Then when it comes time for you to grade and get to your classroom, you can, shut the door and grade, in a way that is more fair and more proficiency oriented for all students. But the IPA works really well because it makes more traditional teachers very satisfied and checks all of the blocks that they're looking for. Plus, it inherently is a proficiency-based assessment because you're constantly asking students for proficiency, which is cool. Also, you can adjust it as needed. It doesn't, in a lot of, very purist circles, it needs to be an authentic document, but couldn't you do the exact same thing with something that you whip up? I mean, you could easily make a collage with some clip art of some clothing items, put some fake prices on it, and make a quiz out of it, right? Like we do that all the time. And you would get the exact same results out of it, minus all of the cultural benefits that would come from using an authentic document. However, it's not always possible in all cases, time being a huge factor in that. Let's be real too, like color copies also being a huge factor in that. So do what you can with the time and the resources that you have. But this is my suggestion for you if you are working on a time crunch, or if you've never tried IPAs, that's exactly how it goes down. So in our example, we talked about if you could even just get your hands on some examples of IPAs that I used to use and that like my department and I created together is for a house unit where students were expected to know different floors in the house and like objects inside each of the rooms and then activities that you would do in each room. We looked up an Airbnb post in French and I printed out all the Airbnb posts and then gave copies to each student. The task was first, they had to tell me what the Airbnb was like and whether it would meet these specific criteria. For example, pretend you're going on a vacation with your family. Airbnb works really well too, because then you can pick something from the target culture, talk about really cool places, that kind of thing. Really, really easy to find listings in very accessible language, because guess what? Just average people in the anybody can do an Airbnb posting and review, right? So you're getting very natural language that's not at like academic levels for students. It's great. So we used an Airbnb once. Menus from restaurant websites are incredible for IPAs, because imagine if you're doing a food unit, that's a really great way to assess all different communicative modes for your students. Give them a menu, ask them some interpretive questions about it. You can even ask them simple questions like, what would you like to order for breakfast? What would you like to order for lunch? What would you order for dinner? And maybe how much would all of it cost at the end? If you had a friend with food allergies who couldn't have, produit du lait, what could they not eat on the menu? What would be a good meal for them? What could they order? Or could they not go here? Questions like that. And then your written part of that IPA the interpretive, you would imagine how easy that would be, right? Like that would just be the back and forth. And like, what are you going to order? What do you like? What do you not like? What's in this food? What is not in this dish? How much is it all going to cost? Great. And then your written part, your presentational part, will be something like write a simple review of what you think your restaurant experience would be like going to this place. What kind of things did you like on the menu? What kind of things do you not like on the menu? Blah, blah, blah. That's a simple example of an IPA. I also have seen ones where people do videos. Videos are great, or even samples of people talking are great. And there's plenty of websites where you can get those, where you would hear two people speaking to each other, or maybe even just one person introducing themselves. Like the go to YouTube, and huge YouTubers usually have a 2-minute introduction of what people can expect on their channel, introducing a little bit about themselves, especially family bloggers and family YouTubers about like family travel. It's, hello, this is me and this is my crazy family. These are my kids and this is what we like to do. We like to travel, and you can expect on this YouTube channel, like and subscribe, blah, blah, blah. But the majority of the first video would be great for an IPA because hello, introductions, who's in my family, what they like to do, and what we do on this channel. That's beautiful use of YouTube for your IPA. You just got to make sure that you'll be able to keep up with the links, but that's really it. So those are all ways that you can make an IPA work for you and use authentic documents to make that IPA really, really rich. And of course, a cheat way around it for integrated performance assessments. Don't tell anybody I told you this. It's fine. Don't tell ACTFL. But you can also use the same principles of having something be integrated and use different modes of communication and test all at once over like a 3-day period. Usually this type of testing does take some time to do in class, is that you can make something on your own. It doesn't have to be completely authentic if you are completely pressed for time, right? Now, another follow-up to this would be, and we can talk about this later as well, put in the comments below if you would like to see this, how to actually orchestrate this in class, because that is a whole nother topic. And we don't have enough time to talk about it now, since these are 10-minute tips. So I hope that this was helpful to you, learning about how to work an integrated performance assessment. Highly recommend them. I used to do them at the end of every thematic unit, but because they're a great, like end of a unit wrap up. They're really good for large assessments, but you could also do a smaller version of them if you want to make more of them. Let me know what your questions are about this. I would love to chat with you about IPAs. Put in the comments below whether you would like to see a video about how to orchestrate this in class, like the actual logistics of it. Also, what position are you in? Are you a Department of One where you get some freedom on your assessments? Or are you like the person who asked this question, who you have a little bit of constraints and you're trying to work within the needs of your department as well as your alignment and goals for your class, which is to be a more proficiency-oriented instructor? Tell me all of it. I can't wait to hear it. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you on the next live class. We do this every Wednesday, so I will see you there. My name is Devin, and I am the teacher, author, and creator behind La Libre Language Learning. And you can come back to this channel and this group for all kinds of tips, resources, and ideas for making your journey to CI Rich techniques a lot more practical. I'll see you next time. Bye, y'all. Have a great week.